you scroll through social media, looking at travel influencers, you are usually sold this very specific, highly curated expectation of the Himalayas, the ones like these pristine, perfectly composed
Oh,
shots.
yeah, the crisp blue skies, the vibrant prayer flags, just, snapping in the wind.
Right, exactly. And there's always a glowing trekker looking totally at peace. It's marketed as this romanticized dream.
Yeah, highly managed experience. It's framed almost like a scenic theme park ride, where the absolute hardest part is simply buying the plane ticket.
But then you actually step off that plane in Nepal and you get out onto those trails and you realize pretty quickly that the mountain does not care about your Instagram filter.
No, it absolutely does not.
The terrain is wild, the weather is, well, it's violently unpredictable,
Yeah.
and the stark reality is that sometimes people just vanish.
They do. And the sheer scale of the Himalayas turns what should be, a standard rescue mission into an incredibly daunting, often agonizing history. I mean, the silence that follows the disappearance of there is
Oof.
profound, primarily because of the geographical and logistical hurdles involved in just figuring out where a person was last seen.
Which brings us to the crucial focus of today's deep dive into the source material. We are examining an incredibly important resource, missingtrekker.com, using this really comprehensive article by David Ways as our foundation.
Right.
Our mission for you today is to understand what this site is, how to use it if the unthinkable happens, and most importantly, I think, the hard-earned safety protocols you need to internalize so you never actually end up on it.
Yeah, and to really grasp the gravity of why a site like this matters, you have to look at the massive informational void that surrounds a disappearance in a developing mountainous nation.
Right. I mean, imagine sitting at home thousands of miles away.
Exactly. Your loved one is trekking. They were supposed to check in on, say, Tuesday, and now it's Friday.
God, that panic is unimaginable. You're calling consulates. You're staring at topographical maps that just look like a tangled mess of contour lines.
Yeah, and you realize you have absolutely no idea where to even begin looking. And for a long time, there was literally nowhere for the families, friends, or loved ones to post about a missing trekker in Nepal.
Nowhere at all.
Nothing. No central database, no digital hub. And that is the exact void missingtrekker.com was built to fill back in 2016. It was created by David Ways.
Oh, wow.
Through his work, he just kept getting contacted by these frantic families desperately seeking help simply because there was no official public repository for this kind of critical information.
So a private citizen just built it. I mean, it is wild that in our era of, hyper-global connectivity, a volunteer is the one holding this specific safety net together.
It really is.
It functions a lot like a crowdsourced Amber Alert bulletin board, right?
Yeah.
Just tailored for the highest mountain range on Earth.
Yeah, that analogy holds up really well. But, establishing the boundaries of this system is critical because missingtrekker.com was never intended to be a permanent tool.
No, it wasn't.
No, the initial hope was that official organizations in Nepal would recognize the undeniable need and build a centralized, state-run database themselves.
Right. That makes sense.
But over the past decade, that transition simply hasn't happened. So this volunteer-led site remains the primary digital rallying point.
So it is strictly an informational hub then?
Entirely informational, yeah. It is not an official search and rescue organization, nor is it an official channel for reporting missing trekkers to the Nepali authorities.
Okay, got it.
It exists purely for families or friends to submit the details of a missing trekker, which the site then publicizes to the wider world.
Wait, I need to look at the mechanics of this for a second, because we are talking about dispatching digital alerts to help find someone lost in one of the most remote mountain ranges on Earth.
Right.
How does a digital bulletin board integrate with a physical search radius in an area with, barely any cell service?
Well, the mechanism relies heavily on the analog nature of the trekking community itself. The trails in Nepal act as major arteries. So, while there might not be cell service on a high pass,
Sure.
the trekking community is incredibly tight-knit. People pass each other constantly in tea houses, on narrow suspension bridges, or at checkpoints.
Oh, I see.
So when a missing trekker is reported on the site, that image and description gets disseminated to local guides, porters, and other trekkers who do have internet access down in the lower valleys or major hubs.
Ah, so they download the info, head up the mountain, and effectively carry the search parameter in their heads.
Exactly.
Like, hey, I saw that guy heading toward Copradanda 2 days ago in a blue jacket. Suddenly, your needle in a haystack becomes a much smaller, highly localized haystack.
Yeah, the word-of-mouth network in the Himalayas moves way faster than you might think. By utilizing facial recognition and human memory from other trekkers, the site has been incredibly successful.
That's amazing.
It really is. Over the years, this crowdsourced publicity has helped many families locate missing loved ones, and it focuses the actual search parameters for the rescue teams on the ground.
And because this volunteer network is the only entity systematically gathering this data, they are uniquely positioned to see the macro trends, right? Which brings us to the annual reports they publish.
Yeah, the annual reports.
Every year, missingtrekker.com releases a detailed review of the previous year based on the data they've gathered. And honestly, reading through the source material, these reports are heavy.
Very heavy.
They track key issues, the numbers of missing trekkers, and in recent years, the deaths. They also call out negligent trekking agents and dangerous guides.
The data provides a totally impartial, unvarnished look at the reality on the ground. It serves as an essential first stop for anyone planning a trek who wants the unedited basics on staying safe.
Yeah.
It's a sobering reminder that people do go missing, and you can view the faces of those individuals right there on the website.
And you look at the list of nationalities mentioned in the David Weiss article: South Korean, German, Chinese, Swedish, Indian. I mean, it proves this isn't just an issue of inexperienced tourists from one specific region.
No, not at all.
This is a global issue affecting people from all walks of life. But you have to ask, like, what is the actual mechanism of disaster here? These are established trails with tea houses. How do people just vanish?
Well, the how usually involves a cascade of compounding physiological and environmental factors. First off, the data shows that most trekkers who go missing are trekking alone.
Oh, solo trekkers.
Yeah. When you are solo, your margin for error just drops to zero. A twisted ankle or a minor slip on a scree slope isn't a minor inconvenience anymore. It instantly becomes a survival situation.
Right, because you can't walk.
Exactly. You can't walk, you don't have a partner to hike down to the nearest tea house for help, and night falls rapidly.
And we all know how fast the temperature drops when the sun goes behind a peak up there. But it's not just injuries, right? The weather itself plays a massive role.
Oh, a massive role. The Himalayas generate extreme, localized microclimates. The sheer size of the mountains forces warm air up so rapidly, creating storms out of literally nowhere.
Wow.
A sunny, clear valley can transform into a blinding whiteout in 20 minutes.
20 minutes? That's terrifying.
Yeah, and if a solo trekker gets disoriented in that whiteout and steps off the popular trail just to find shelter, their physical footprint is erased by snow, and their chances of being discovered drop exponentially.
I also want to touch on the physiological side, because the source material brings up acclimatization. We talk about altitude sickness, like it just gives you a headache. But hypoxia, the lack of oxygen to your brain, fundamentally impairs your prefrontal cortex.
It does. It destroys your ability to assess risk.
Right. So you have a solo trekker, maybe a little disoriented by a microclimate storm, and their oxygen-deprived brain decides taking a shortcut down an unmarked ravine is a good idea.
Exactly. That cognitive impairment is a massive silent contributor to these disappearances. You make decisions you would never, ever make at sea level.
Yeah.
But we also need to balance this picture a bit, because the annual reports are not just doom and gloom. They highlight significant positivity in the trekking world, too.
Oh, good. Like what?
Well, they track successful rescues, showing how the system, when it works, really saves lives. They also track systemic improvements, like the recent CBI investigation into trekking scams.
Right. Let's define that for the audience. The CBI is the Central Bureau of Investigation. But what exactly is the scam they were investigating? How do you even run a scam in the middle of a mountain range?
It revolves entirely around insurance fraud.
Wait, an insurance scam?
Yeah. Certain bad actors, like unethical trekking agents or guides, were caught intentionally pushing trekkers to accept unnecessary helicopter rescues for really minor ailments.
Are you kidding me?
I wish I was. They would then claim exorbitant payouts from the international travel insurance companies and pocket a kickback. This investigation was a massive positive step because those scams drain vital aviation resources, they keep helicopters tied up when real emergencies happen, and they make international insurers wary of covering Nepal at all.
That is infuriating. But it proves why tracking this data is so vital, right? It cleans up the industry.
Absolutely.
So understanding how easily things go wrong naturally leads to the most terrifying practical question. If you are the person sitting at home and your loved one hasn't checked in, what is the actual protocol?
Yeah, so the David Weiss article lays out a very specific sequence, and the critical first step is just environmental context. Before declaring an emergency, you have to remember the infrastructure of the Himalayas. Do not immediately assume the worst-case scenario.
Because infrastructure up there is fragile, like a landslide takes out a localized cell tower or the trekker's power bank dies and suddenly they're incommunicado for 3 days.
Right, internet is patchy at best. And sometimes trekkers meet a great group at a tea house, decide to stay an extra day to acclimatize or just enjoy being off the grid, and simply forget to update their family.
Fair enough.
So your very first actionable step is to contact the trekking agency they booked with. You insist the agency use their radio or local contacts to check in with a guide on the ground.
Okay, let's say you do that. You call the agency, you wait 48 hours, and nobody has heard anything. The trekker is genuinely overdue. What is the official mobilization process?
Then you must compile every piece of hard data available. Physical descriptions, passport numbers, flight itineraries, the specific route they plan to take, and their insurance details.
All the paperwork.
Exactly. Armed with that, you escalate to the official authorities. You contact the Nepal Tourist Police. You contact the Trekking Agencies Association of Nepal, commonly known as Tiran. You reach out to the Nepal Tourism Board, and you notify the Trekker's Embassy.
And this is where the sequence is so important, right? Only after you have officially notified those agencies do you submit the details to missingtrekker.com.
Yes.
Because you need the official task force spinning up while you simultaneously launch the public awareness campaign to crowdsource the search.
Exactly. The public alert complements the official search. It does not replace it.
Wait, we are talking about dispatching high-altitude helicopters, mobilizing search teams, coordinating with local police based on a missing persons report. How does the Nepali government actually fund that kind of massive mobilization? I mean, we are talking about one of the poorest countries in South Asia managing highly specialized aviation logistics.
Well, the harsh truth of mountain rescue is that the government does not fund it.
Yeah.
You do.
Wait, the family pays for the helicopters?
The financial burden falls almost entirely on the trekker or their family. While there are some localized emergency funds, they are vastly inadequate to cover an intensive, multi-day search and rescue operation.
I had no idea.
Yeah, we're talking about specialized high-altitude pilots, super expensive aviation fuel, and dedicated ground teams. If the missing trekker does not have proper, specialized travel insurance, families are forced to rely on crowdsourcing to finance the search.
So you are dealing with the absolute emotional terror of a missing family member. And simultaneously, you have to set up a GoFundMe to try and raise tens of thousands of dollars just to keep the helicopters in the air for one more day.
Yes.
That is a total nightmare scenario.
It is,
Yeah.
which underscores why having the correct insurance is not an optional luxury. It is a vital, non-negotiable piece of survival gear.
Absolutely. Having discussed the terrifying and incredibly expensive reality of a search and rescue operation, we need to look at prevention.
Yeah.
Because missingtrekker.com isn't just a bulletin board for the missing, it serves as an impartial database for staying safe.
Right.
How do you, the listener, ensure you never end up on this site?
The first major preventative measure directly addresses that influencer culture we opened the show with. The source material explicitly warns against using YouTube videos as your primary research.
Oh, because they're edited?
Exactly. They're edited for engagement. They highlight the triumph of the summit,
Yeah.
and they completely edit out the grueling, dangerous reality of the ascent. This creates a dangerous confirmation bias, where people fundamentally underestimate the high-altitude environment.
It creates a false sense of security. So let's walk through the essential preparation protocols outlined in the article. First, you need a physical, recently updated guidebook. Do not rely exclusively on downloadable apps or online digital maps.
Never.
I want to dig into the why here, because we use apps for literally everything in our daily lives. Why do they fail in the Himalayas?
It comes down to topography and the nature of crowdsourced data. Deep ravines and towering peaks cause something called GPS multipath error.
Multipath error.
Yeah, where the satellite signal bounces off the rock walls, showing your location hundreds of meters away from where you actually are.
Oh, wow, that's incredibly dangerous.
And furthermore, anyone can upload a route to these digital trail apps. A previous trekker might have gotten hopelessly lost, scrambled over a dangerous landslide, and barely survived. But their GPS track gets uploaded as a new trail.
No way.
Yes. If you follow that digital breadcrumb trail on your app, you are walking directly into a hazard. Guidebooks, particularly physical ones updated by professionals, are vetted. And critically, a physical book never suffers battery failure in freezing temperatures.
The battery issue alone is enough reason. I mean, my phone dies if it's slightly chilly outside.
Exactly.
Okay, next crucial safety tip. Download the What 3 Words Offline app. This is an incredible piece of technology. It divides the entire planet into a grid of 3-meter by 3-meter squares and assigns each square a unique 3-word address.
It's brilliant.
Right, so if you break your leg and you manage to get a sliver of cell signal, you don't have to try and explain the shape of the ridge you are under. You just say, I'm at Apple Table Sunset, and the rescue dispatcher knows your exact 3-meter square.
The precision removes all the guesswork from the search radius. But the vital caveat here is that you must download the offline language pack for Nepal before you leave.
Right.
It has to be able to generate that location utilizing only your phone's GPS receiver without needing an active data connection.
That's a great tip. Then there is the insurance aspect we touched on. You have to ensure your policy actually covers trekking over 3,000 meters.
Yes, because standard travel insurance underwriters view anything above 3,000 meters as an extreme sport. The policy automatically voids if you cross that elevation line.
Just automatically voids.
Yep. You have to purchase specialized high-altitude coverage that explicitly includes search and rescue extraction.
You definitely do not want to find out your policy is voided on a technicality while you're sitting at 4,000 meters with pulmonary edema waiting for a helicopter.
Definitely not.
Which brings up another massive point the source material hammers home. Don't kill yourself trying to save money.
Yeah. The most common way people try to cut their budget is by rushing the itinerary. They try to squeeze a 10-day route into 7 days just to save money on daily tea house fees and meals.
And as we discussed earlier with hypoxia, acclimatization is a strict physiological process. You cannot negotiate with your own red blood cell count.
You really can't.
Rushing causes acute mountain sickness, which leads to cognitive impairment, which leads to fatal decisions.
Right. And the other dangerous cost-saving measure is skipping a guide. This ties directly into the mindset of the experienced, independent hiker who severely underestimates the environment.
Oh, the macho ego. You see this constantly.
All the time.
Someone runs marathons, they've hiked extensively in the Rockies or the Alps, and they look at a map of Nepal and think, I don't need a local guide to walk up a trail.
The hubris is staggering, honestly, because the variables are entirely different. It is not just about physical fitness. It is about understanding the local microclimates, speaking the local language to arrange emergency transport, and knowing how to read the early signs of altitude sickness before it becomes critical.
Exactly.
Experience in other mountain ranges just does not automatically translate to survival in the Himalayas.
It doesn't. And when you act brash, when you refuse to hire porters or refuse a guide on your first trip, you aren't just risking your own life in a vacuum. When you inevitably get lost or injured, you are forcing local Nepali rescue teams and pilots to risk their lives flying into dangerous weather systems to pull you off a glacier.
Which brings us back to a core philosophy of high-altitude environments. On a mountain, safety is a collective effort. It is an interconnected web.
Yeah.
By refusing to participate in that safety net, by skipping a guide, you place an unfair burden on the entire system.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive? It really brings our conversation full circle back to your own journey and your own responsibility as a traveler.
The most empowering takeaway from analyzing the Missing Trekker database is that a regular tourist can transform into a vital component of a missing persons rescue network simply by being informed.
That's a great point.
Just by keeping your eyes open on the trail, making mental notes of the solo trekkers you pass, and knowing where to report that information if you see an alert, you become part of the solution rather than just a passive consumer of the landscape.
But I want to leave you with a larger, somewhat provocative thought about where all this is heading. We talked a lot today about the informational void and how dangerous it is. But as satellite internet networks like Starlink become increasingly ubiquitous, even at Everest Base Camp, we have to wonder how the psychology of trekking will shift.
That's a really interesting point.
Will constant, seamless connectivity finally eliminate the terror of the missing trekker? Or will having high-speed internet in your tent just breed an even more dangerous false sense of security, encouraging unprepared people to push further into the wild because they assume a rescue helicopter is just a WhatsApp message away?
Technology changes the logistics, absolutely, but it doesn't change the mountain.
Yeah.
The environment will always hold the ultimate authority.
The mountains are wild, and they will always be wild. But we don't have to be helpless. So please, we strongly encourage you to visit missingtrekker.com before heading out as a non-negotiable part of your preparation.
Yes, definitely.
You never know. The safety protocols there might help save your life, and your awareness on the trail might well be able to save someone else's.
It is a resource built out of absolute necessity, existing purely to help the community.
Absolutely. The links to the David Weiss article and the website are in the show notes. Please do like and subscribe. And the next time you see that perfectly filtered summit shot on your feed, remember to look past the edges of the frame. Respect the mountain, prepare for the reality, and keep an eye out for each other.